even death can save you from me.
Can you believe that Diablo 2 came out over 23 years ago, and it still managed to keep a captivated audience with game design that holds up against all the big modern games that it happened to inspire? That's how good this game is. The peak Diablo that Blizzard has never quite been able to improve upon or arguably replicate. Based on my very mid experience with Diablo 3, I didn't really know what to expect from its prequel that came out 12 years earlier, but I ended up being so impressed with the game design, the world, the feeling of accomplishment brought on by difficult encounters, the simple crafting that leads to a complex rune word system, a loot and itemization system that makes even the manliest of men giddy with excitement hearing the sound of gems and runes hitting the ground. All of this accompanied by the ever-present atmospheric dread of a hell-torn world as you, a simple adventurer, are called upon to rid the world of demons, completing increasingly monumental tasks, culminating in the eventual confrontation with the big bad terrifying Diablo, and in the expansion, the Lord of Destruction himself, Baal. You may be thinking, hey DJ, you are completely overreacting, Diablo 2 can't be that good, and you are right. By today's standards, it's just a really well-designed game, similar to the quality of Path of Exile or any of your favorite modern ARPGs, but on top of being extremely well-designed by modern standards, this isn't a modern game. This is from the year 2000. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask came out in 2000. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and the original Sims came out in 2000. This was well before the established modern gaming era. And the fact that Diablo 2 got so much right before anyone had the hindsight and years of player feedback to make it right is mind-boggling. That's the last time I'm going to talk about Diablo as the legend from Y2K. This isn't going to be a "the game was good for its time" review. This review will instead be a "the game is an 8 out of 10 comparative to industry leaders like Path of Exile and far more captivating than spin-off games like Diablo 4. The rest of the review will be on Diablo 2 Resurrected, because damn, honestly with these graphics and the updated cinematics, combined with solid gameplay and a few quality of life features, this is probably one of the best games Blizzard has released in recent years. Diablo 2 is an action RPG that doesn't choose between the action or RPG. It actually fits both things together, providing recognizable adventure and story elements of CRPGs like Baldur's Gate, Pillars of Eternity, and Elder Scrolls, mixed in with the loot mechanics and faster-paced top-down combat of action RPGs like Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, or Last Epoch. You start Diablo 2 as a random run-of-the-mill adventurer, weak and insignificant. You are tasked with helping an encampment of rogues to rid the surrounding area of a small band of demons that have recently raided and inhabited the nearby caves, graveyards, and towns. After completing some small tasks and earning the camp's trust, you are told by a mystic that an old man is being held captive in a town called Tristram. As luck would have it, this old man is actually Deckard Cain, the last Haradrim, which is basically a mage whose entire purpose is to trap the primevals in crystals and keep them from getting out. Obviously, Grandpa Cain failed to do so, and the rest of your adventure is to help him rid the world of demon commanders, kill all 3 primevals, and make sure they never return. Simple enough, right? In terms of a premise, this story is incredibly simple. You are a normal adventurer wanting to do good things in a shitty world. One day you get yourself tied up in a series of events that lead to the world depending on you to kill the big bad evil thing and save the day. There is obviously a lot of lore to supplement all of this, but this is the basic underlying structure of the narrative. Yet what makes this simple story work so well is actually the execution. You experience the story through 2 sets of eyes. First, you get the cinematic storytelling through the eyes of Marius, a well-written tragedy of a character who just wanted to smoke some weed in a tavern and ended up bringing about the resurrection of a couple of primevals. This gives the player context. It shows the devastation the primevals cause, or the sheer power these beings have, through the eyes of someone who doesn't know what's going on. We, the players, are Marius, trying to make sense of what's going on and only understanding after it's already too late. Second, you experience the story through the gameplay, following in Marius' footsteps, chasing him and the Dark Wanderer down, trying to fix the destruction left in their wake. The main reason I think this works so well is that through the cinematics, Diablo 2 builds up the main villains of the game in order to raise the tension of your eventual encounter. But after the cinematics, you don't see or talk to these evils again until you actually fight them in your journey, running into their lair to try and take them down. Instead, they are an ever-present threat, with the player knowing that when the battle comes, it'll be epic beyond anything they've achieved so far. But I want to reiterate, there is no contact with these primevals beforehand, outside of the cinematics. There's no back and forth witty banter with Mephisto. You don't try and reason with Diablo. You don't go and try to persuade Bale to tell you why he is evil and learn more about his backstory and if he's gone to therapy to talk about his daddy or mommy issues. The bosses are ready to kill you, whether you are strong enough to beat them or not, and no excess storytelling is going to come between them and kicking your ass. As soon as you pop your pretty little head into their lair, they start flinging spells and weapons at you. On top of that, the act system does an incredible job of providing episodic storytelling, giving the player a contained storyline that still contributes to the overall narrative. And after each act, even though you brought peace to the area you just saved, you still need to continue your journey with Deckard Cain to defeat the primevals, since that is your ultimate goal. I don't want to talk too much about the story in case there are people who haven't played the game and don't want spoilers, so I will just say that the story does an amazing job at serving two purposes. First, like I was saying, it provides a compelling reason for the player to want to complete the content, defeating bosses and other enemies that have been built up as incredible and awesome powerhouses. Second, it builds a very gruesome and dark atmosphere in the world. This makes even the smallest of tasks feel important, because no matter how easy something may sound in quest text, the player knows that the world is incredibly unforgiving and powerful enemies lurk in every corner ready to take them down. This is similar to the sense of urgency that Souls games, The Witcher, or Path of Exile employ. This dark, pseudo-horror atmosphere is used in all these games to make the player uneasy in order to spike some serious dopamine when they manage to defeat a boss or complete a difficult quest. The feel of the game would be much different if the player didn't fear leaving the towns, knowing that as soon as they step outside the safety of the sanctuary, they are in the untamed wild, with danger that can jump out at you at any moment. So now that we've established the background of the game, I want to get into some mechanics. To start, I want to go through the mechanics that I think we can agree to call old school or classic in design. Things that modern RPGs or ARPGs have gotten rid of or designed in a new way to make it a little bit more quality of life friendly. You can make up your own mind if you like these features or not. I just want to call them out because I think it's an interesting view into the type of design friction that classic RPGs employ. In Diablo 2, you have a stamina gauge. You use stamina to run. And that's basically it. But somehow you always run out of stamina. When you start off a character and for the first 2 or 3 acts, you run out of stamina all the time. You are constantly running around the map, trying to chase after enemies, looking for the next quest objectives or whatever. But because stamina increases with your vitality stat, low-level characters will never have enough stamina to just keep running around. So inevitably what happens is that you have your character running, stopping to walk every couple seconds to recharge a bit of stamina, and then running again for a couple seconds. Run, stop, it's very jarring. The only reason I think that this is somewhat irritating is because of the enormous difference between the speed of running and the speed of walking. Walking isn't just slow, it's closer to staying still than moving at all, and it makes you feel bad when you're exploring or looking for things and you run out of stamina, almost like a punishment for being too curious or not being able to find your way around the map. Now the game has you build yourself around needing to run and walk. You have stamina potions that give you unlimited stamina for a short time. You have gear that can increase your run and walk speed so you don't feel as slow when you walk. You can raise your vitality stats so you have more stamina and run out of it less. More often than not, most characters will actually have enough stamina and it'll stop being such a problem after getting to Act 4 or so. Like I said, not a big deal, but it does make me rethink making new characters without pumping them full of speed upgraded gear from my higher level ones. Next is the inventory management. This comes down to knowledge of the game, so it mostly affects noobs like me. Basically, you have an inventory that can carry a certain amount of items. It's a grid-based inventory with each item taking up a certain amount of the grid. So playing inventory Tetris is definitely a must in order to optimize your space. But if you think this is a small but reasonable amount of space for items, think again. In order to teleport back to base without using a waypoint, you must have town portal scrolls. You can carry 20 of them in this book, which takes up 2 inventory grid spaces. In order to use magical items, you need to identify them with these identify scrolls. This book carries 20 of them. On top of that, you need to carry charms. Charms are these totem-like items which provide bonuses to your character as long as they're in your inventory. If you've ever played Last Epoch, the idol system is based off charms. The biggest difference is that charms need to be in your inventory and take up 1 to 3 slots depending on which type of charm it is. And charms are extremely helpful, so you will most likely want to carry at least a couple of them. Next are potions. You can find health and mana potions, stamina potions, antidotes for poisons, thawing potions for cold resistance, damage potions for throwing at enemies. All of these take up space in your inventory. Some of these can be put on your belt, but there are limited belt slots and Diablo 2 is a very potion-heavy game, so you may want to keep those belt slots reserved for mana and health potions. Okay, so Town Portal and Identify Scroll books, charms, potions, there's this key ring that holds 12 keys so you can open locked chests out in the world, which tend to be pretty lucrative, which leaves the other half of your inventory for loot. Weapons and armor take up huge amounts of inventory, so really you can only carry a couple at a time. Gems and runes are a single slot but don't stack, and they are rare enough that you're trained to pick up every single one just in case you need them in the future. And quest items are carried in your inventory and can take up 1 to 4 slots as well. Obviously this was the intention of the game design, make inventory space a resource that you have to manage to make it part of the game instead of an afterthought. As much as I agree with the philosophy of it, I do also think that it breaks up the gameplay a little bit too much. The player is trained to fill their inventory as much as possible, use a portal to town, study which items you need, and then sell the rest, before returning to the dungeon and then continuing your mission. The trade-off here is, yes, you make inventory and loot interesting, making the player think about what they're going to pick up and how valuable it'll actually be to them, either to use or sell. But on the other hand, this does mean that Diablo 2 feels much slower, with these trips back to base becoming almost a regular occurrence in order to fill up your stash with gold, gems, runes, equipment that you might use later on or maybe for an alt, and set pieces that you don't have the full set for. Honestly though, my only gripe with this is that Diablo 2 came very close to the perfect balance of making you think about your inventory and not breaking up gameplay. This is mostly a new player problem, and again, there are ways to get around the slow inventory management in the game, like carrying around this cube that gives extra slots, but in my mind, sometimes getting around the problem doesn't really mean that the players are having fun with the system. For me, the modern system I would prefer wouldn't give unlimited space, but I would make inventory space important for loot and items that you pick up out in the world. I like Last Epoch's idle system, so you don't have to carry charms that take up inventory space. I would get rid of the keyring and put that as a renewable resource as well. And I know this is a bit controversial, but I would also get rid of the town portal book and have that be a renewable resource as well. That way you can still pick them up in the world and can technically run out of them, but they don't take up an inventory slot. Same would go for identify scrolls, which I think still have a use even though Grandpappy Cain will identify items for you. I think this frees up a ton of space and clears your inventory for potions, loot, and things you can sell. More importantly, it means that whenever you go back to your base and manage your haul, you can actually empty your entire inventory, which is extremely satisfying and feels like a breath of fresh air. But that's just how I would personally handle the inventory system. That's kind of the power of hindsight though, right? So I don't blame Diablo 2 for designing inventory this way. It was actually close to perfect. I just think it got better and more refined over time. Overall, I think the classic parts of Diablo 2 sort of give the game its charm. There's more than the two I talked about, like the melee targeting system that requires you to chase and left-click every single mob. But for me, it's like going back and playing the first Super Smash Bros., or the first Legend of Zelda, or playing classic-era World of Warcraft. I understand that these games may not be as flashy as more modern titles, or have the quality of life upgrades that have been added to the games over time, but that's exactly why I choose to go back and play these classic games. They are different, and sometimes I feel like I need these older games to remind me to take my time in a game, rather than rush ahead to the parts that give me the most adrenaline or feeling of accomplishment. It's not about loving the game in spite of these design choices, it's loving the game because of them. Enjoying that Diablo 2 makes every second of the game count, and doesn't rely on a complicated endgame to make the campaign worth getting through. What do you do when you beat the Diablo 2 campaign? You raise the difficulty, add some modifiers, and increase the rarity and strength of items so you can continue your progression. There are 3 difficulties, Normal, Nightmare, and Hell, and after that, your goal is to buff up your character and optimize them to the point you can take on the uber bosses that require crafted invitations to fight. I don't think that Diablo 2 is packed with endless content. I think that it's fun, and it has enough content to hold over anyone who hasn't absolutely mastered it, and the content that it has is so good that it'll keep you coming back to experience it, try a new class, make a new build, try a hardcore character, try to compete on the ladder for a season. And the last thing I'll talk about in this video is the game mechanic that kept me coming back for the last 2 months, and will most likely keep me coming back for years to come, and that is the hauntingly beautiful, sensational, absolutely astonishing quality of the loot and itemization design that has me hearing the individual item drop sounds in my dreams. I think the first thing to say about items in D2 is that rare items are actually rare. That's really one of the driving forces behind my love for this game's design. Nothing is in excess, everything is scarce, which means you learn to appreciate what drops, and are constantly searching for more. Gold is not easy to come by as a new player, and things cost a lot, so you learn to pick up every little pile of gold you find, and sell as many items as possible to make enough gold to fund your adventure. Combat is difficult, with health and mana requiring potion chugging to regenerate until your build can manage to keep them topped, so even potions become a happy sight to see after a tough battle. Gear has 3 base rarities, normal white, magic blue, and rare yellow, with extremely rare green set items, gold unique items, and gray socketed items. I went through the entire normal campaign without encountering a single unique item, so when one finally dropped, I legitimately gasped. Unique items are extremely rare, and finding high-level uniques that specifically work for your build does not happen very often. This scarcity of gear makes you appreciate every item that drops. It makes you stop to read every single easily understood stat modifier on an item, because that item may just be the upgrade you were looking for, and may be the upgrade that will last you for the rest of the act. I compare it to modern ARPGs where gear is definitely important, but every group of enemies drops 4 to 5 pieces of it. Instead of getting excited to look through what dropped to find the next upgrade, players are trained to only pick up the yellow rare items or use a loot filter to hide things that aren't relevant to your build, because looking through each and every item on the floor could take hours of your day. Both systems have merit, but I think Diablo 2 makes loot exciting and compact and recognizable, which kind of leads into crafting, which is an equally important part of loot and itemization. Crafting in Diablo 2 works like this. Certain rarities of items have the chance to be socketed up to 6 times. Each socket can fit 1 modifier item. There are 2 main types of modifier items, gems and runes. Gems provide your basic modifiers. They have very specific effects when you place them into a socket, based on which type of equipment you're setting them into. Gems come in different tiers, with higher tiers providing better bonuses. Runes are much more special. They provide unique bonuses and can be used to create rune words. Rune words are special combinations of runes that, when placed in a certain order on a certain item type, will create a crafted unique item. These rune word recipes are not told to you anywhere in the game and provide some of the best gear that you can use. Obviously, you can look up everything online, but this sort of creates a mystique around them. Like, you can almost explore and find more rune words that may lead to better and better items. Runes are also tiered, with certain runes requiring a higher character level to use in crafting. And the best thing about this whole system is that runes are incredibly rare drops. The whole crafting system in itself is this huge payoff for farming rare resources in the world. I gotta tell you, the feeling of seeing that orangey yellow text pop up is absolute euphoria. Doesn't matter what rune it is, all of them are important, because even if the character I'm playing is level 60, 70, 100, runes that drop to level 17 can still be used in rune words that are powerful for optimized top tier high level characters. If the scarcity and importance of drops and the crafting system to refine your gear doesn't make loot interesting enough for you, why don't I add the icing on the cake and talk about the Heraldric Cube? This is just a small addition to the overall perfection that is itemization in the game, but to me, this is one of the most important. The Heraldric Cube is an item that you receive in Act 2 that allows for you to transmute low-level crafting items into higher-level crafting items. Why is this a big deal? Because this is how the game respects your time. If you're farming and the RNG doesn't go your way, you're not wasting your time. Low-level gems can be traded up in 3s to get 1 higher-level gem. Runes can be traded up in 3s to get higher-level runes. Using this system, you can trade up to get any crafting material you want, as long as you know the recipe to trade up. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love that Diablo 2 respects your time like this. I feel like the game understands that it doesn't need to force you to grind endlessly just for the crafting materials that you need to take a chance at getting the right gear. Recipes are there for you to get the materials you want, they never change. Just like the rune words that give some of the best gear. Rune words never change. They provide the same stats, just roll within a certain range. So yes, if you want to optimize, you need to grind a bit to craft multiple rune words, but for the most part, unless you're going for the uber bosses, you don't need to optimize completely. Anyway, point I'm trying to make is that itemization in D2 hits 3 extremely important key design philosophies that I look for in modern games. Important and rewarding loot drops, easy to learn, hard to master, mostly predictable crafting mechanics, and respecting the player's time. Okay, this video is getting long, so I just want to really quickly mention a couple things. Classes in D2 are extremely well made, with each class having 3 skill trees that basically act as specializations within the class. For example, the druid can be a spellcaster or a shapeshifter. The mage can specialize in ice, lightning, or fire spells. Or you can mix and match the skill trees to make whatever build you want. You get a skill point every level, with some quests providing a couple extra throughout the campaign. It's a linear cascading skill tree, meaning that in order to get to the very bottom more powerful skills, you need to invest points earlier in the tree. It's simple, yet extremely difficult to optimize, and my first character was an absolute bust until I got some help from some viewers on my stream. The different skills are great, and even though they aren't as flashy as some of the modern games, they look amazing for what they are. Some of the skills in this game are pretty iconic for ARPGs that we have today. Whirlwind is a skill where you spin and most of the time end up winning. Blessed Hammer is a paladin skill where you throw a hammer that circles around you and damages enemies. To shorten this explanation, most people just call it the Hammered In. The Sorceress just teleports everywhere, skipping every fight, like going through walls and stuff, but I would say Meteor, Frozen Armor, Frost Nova, Frozen Orb, Blizzard, Chain Lightning, and literally all of these spells are pretty much staples in the ARPG genre. Well, except for Hydra. That remains to be purely Diablo, and I love it. I know a lot of these skills are from tabletop games and other RPGs that have come before Diablo, but still, the inspiration for modern games is there even in the animations. The Mercenary System is actually pretty solid. It gives you a companion that will help you in battle, but most importantly, it gives you a way to cover your weaknesses in your build. Every mercenary comes with a couple skills, which includes an aura. These auras are some of the most helpful things in the entire game, and if you don't have them in your build, your mercenary can provide them for you. Mercs can also be equipped with gear that you give them, so you can build them to cover damage types or reduce enemy healing, whatever you need. You definitely need to focus on building and managing them though, or else they'll just charge in and die in seconds. Turns into a huge cost to revive them once they get to higher levels. Of course, you can't talk about D2 without talking about the hidden cow level, but I won't talk about it. I think it's something that you either know about already, or it's an experience that you need to see for yourself. It's just the best hidden secret I've ever seen programmed into an ARPG, and it reminds me of a time when Blizzard could create fun things like that, like they actually love their products or something. Finally, the community is damn amazing. I've watched some D2 streamers, read some Reddit posts, I asked people on my stream for help. Everyone seemed so welcoming and helpful. I just find it to be so amazing that this game has managed to capture this audience and keep so many people engaged with the game for so long. Obviously, it's not the most popular game out there right now, but I feel like it has some of the most dedicated fans I've ever seen. Some of the people I talk to say that it's a game they'll never stop playing. Even if they take breaks for a while, they'll still come back and play every now and again. On top of that, there are people supporting and playing on private servers that create new content in the style of the old Diablo 2 game. It's amazing to me how passionate these fans are, and more so, it just makes me feel bad for Diablo fans. Diablo 3 obviously didn't turn out the way people wanted it to, and Diablo 4 seems to be yet another disappointment that will hopefully be fixed in the coming years. It makes me sad that Blizzard has another passionate fan base that have been starved for a good game, and that's coming from me, a World of Warcraft veteran who has been disappointed by Blizzard on a regular basis for quite some time. Please leave a comment and tell me about your experience with Diablo 2. I would love to know how many D2 fans are out there right now and have moved on to other games, and what you think of what's become of the ARPG genre since then. To me, modern ARPGs have kind of moved away from being an RPG and has become its own fast-paced, isometric hack-and-slash grindfest, and even though I totally love the modern games, I do sometimes miss the old, slower RPG format that classic games were made to be. But most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the video. If I didn't talk about something in this review that you love most about D2, let me know. I would love to talk about it in future videos. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you have an amazing journey into the world of Sanctuary, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.